Hi, I'm Paige Edrington, and today I'm going to be talking about option number one for the final project about the political ambition gap between men and women. So women make up slightly more than half of the U.S. population. In terms of political participation, they vote in equal or sometimes greater proportion to men. They also have similar rates in other forms of participation, such as protests. They actually have higher numbers when it comes to political interest, especially at the local level. But despite all of this, there are significantly less women who run for public office, especially when you look at state or federal level. Lawless and Fox put forward some reasons for this, for the ambition gap, and they talk a lot about traditional gender socialization. So traditional family roles play a big part in this. Women perform about 3 times as much household labor than men. So for many of them, if they have the household chores, children to raise, perhaps already a career, so politics would be like a third job for them. There's also this idea of double binds, kind of the question that the Slaughter article addressed: can women really have it all? If a woman succeeds professionally, then she's seen as not fulfilling her womanly duties, such as raising her children or taking care of the household. If she fails professionally, then she basically feels bad for taking the time away from her home life to try to have it all. Women are less likely to be encouraged to run, that's by anyone. Men's parents are more likely to socialize them to run from an early age, where women's parents are not. Women are less likely to also be encouraged from political actors or the parties as well. After controlling for many factors, such as education levels and backgrounds, that shows that women are 16% less likely to receive this encouragement. There's also this idea that the world of politics is still very masculinized. It's still a boys' club. For a long time, it's only men, so it's still kind of hard for women to break through. And then there's also the gendered psyche. Men are much more likely to see themselves as qualified than women. Women have greater levels of self-doubt, and it starts very young. They start to undervalue their achievements and their abilities, and they don't see they're very self-conscious. Men are also way more competitive, and women are less so. And these differences, the self-doubt and the poor self-assessments exist even if the education levels are the same between the men and women. So this gap in political ambition and the lower representation of women in politics does have some effects on public policy. Basically, if there were more women in office, the substantive issues they're going to bring to the table are going to be much different. They're going to, be much more involved with women's issues such as reproductive rights, equal pay for women, issues dealing with children and family. And so there are issues that men just aren't as likely to bring to the table, and there's going to be more debate from a woman's point of view if more women are in office. The next effect they have is there's a difference in leadership styles. Women have a much more what they call a consensus-building leadership style, and it's very horizontal and more democratic, where men have the more top-down business style leadership. And then a third effect on public policy is the idea of symbolic representation, kind of a role model effect that more women in office would have on other women. So basically, when there are more women, since typically they're underrepresented, when there are more women, women's political knowledge increases, just their interest in it, and kind of the way they see themselves within the political world changes, and it helps to change their attitudes in general around about politics. This is especially important since most women they're less likely to get encouraged at home or anywhere in their life. If they have the role model effect, is going to greatly help encourage them to run. So I think one solution that would help close this gap is kind of this idea of more organized support and kind of the mentor's role model effects. One study showed that if a woman who was thinking about running for office actually reached out to a support group that helped her, she was much more likely to get past the candidate emergence phase. So if we create more groups that sole purpose is to basically help a woman through the process of deciding to run, starting a campaign, and actually running, I think they're going to be a lot more likely to run. Most women said that they would take advantage of that kind of resource. Also, with more role models in place, we can kind of maybe change the way that we look at roles, like these traditional family roles that Lawless and Fox mentioned. Instead of terms of just like men and women's roles in the home, we look more in terms of caretaker or homemaker and breadwinner, whatever terms we could come up with, just to kind of get the gender, try to remove the gender out of it a little more, and kind of change the way we think, that we don't assume that the home work comes, is completely up to the woman to do, and kind of help change the balance at home to make it a little easier for women to decide to run. It wouldn't seem as much like a third job. The second idea is just starting really young with just education, just educating everyone about the gender gap, about this idea of a gendered psyche, and helping encourage women from a young age, because the gap is actually larger for younger people. So if we start in middle school, or maybe even younger, just to educate them, showing them videos like Misrepresentation that we watched in class, and just really make them aware of this. I think it would help, especially if they're not getting that kind of encouragement at home. I think starting at school would be a really good idea. I think overall, to solve this problem, we've kind of got to look at what Slaughter said in her article. We've got to kind of change society for this. We've got to kind of redefine these traditional roles to make it easier, because the way things are right now, women can't have it all, a career, family, and pursue a political career. So I think we've really got to work on changing that, the traditional gender roles, and then have more women in office who would serve as mentors, which are key for younger women to think about running. And also more of these support groups, and then the education. I think it would really help increase the number of women and help get more women in office in the United States. Thank you.